Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I have a little bit of a different concept where I'm going to give you some book recommendations based on Taylor Swift albums. I feel like I've seen people talk about this before on YouTube and TikTok where they will read a book and then talk about what Taylor Swift song it reminds them of or if like the plot is similar. And I always feel like that's a really cool way to get recommendations for new things to read or new movies to watch based on something that you already like. And I've definitely been trying to prioritize reading the past few years, and so I finally felt like I had a big enough list of books to choose from that I could actually make a list of 10 for all of the Taylor Swift albums, so that's what we're gonna do today. Before we start, I want to do two small disclaimers. The first one is stupid, but I feel like I want to say it anyway. A lot of the books that I'm recommending are very popular books and probably books that you've read on a lot of recommended lists anyway, but I still think it's really cool to put books, even if you've already read them, in the perspective of the albums. So don't come at me for reading basic books or reading things that are popular. I don't read a huge volume of books every year. I only read between about 10 books a year, so I don't have a lot to choose from. I like reading popular books. That's it. That's all I'm gonna say. And the second thing is that a lot of these book and album mashups I don't think are necessarily similar on like a plot basis, and a lot of them are more similar based on theme or vibe or setting or tone. It's not like, oh, this album is about whatever breakup and this book is about a similar breakup to that. Like, it's not like that. It's more about theme. But I'll explain for each one. Do you like my shirt? I just got this in the mail. I ordered it from the 1989 merch drop on Taylor's website, but I only got it like 2 weeks ago. I actually forgot that I ordered it, but it's really cute. I like it. And if you like book content like this, I don't post a lot like this on YouTube, but I do post it on my Instagram story a lot. I'll post about what I'm reading and ask for recommendations and show my TBR. And I talk about it on TikTok sometimes too. So definitely follow me over on there if you want to see more long form book related content. Let me know. Starting out, we're gonna start with debut, Taylor Swift. This is a unique recommendation. I wish this one wasn't first, but I'm recommending The Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants. This is a book that I read when I was a child, and in, I think, 2022, I went back and I read all 4 of the main, what's it called when there's 4 books in a series? Not a trilogy. I don't know. I read all 4 Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants books in 2022, and truly, it was such an awesome experience reading them as an adult. Obviously, the album Taylor Swift is so much about being young, girlhood, not knowing what your place is in the world and trying to figure that out, feeling connected to your childhood but still looking forward into your adult life. And those themes are so present in these books. These are some of like the best written books for young girls, I think. The story is beautiful, but they also just have so many nice life lessons and morals in them. If you haven't read Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants, if you've never heard of it or seen the movies, what are you doing, first of all? But if you don't know, I'll tell you a little synopsis. It's basically the story of 4 best friends who, I think the first book takes place this summer after their junior year of high school. For the first time in their lives, they are going to be separated for the summer. They're all going different places. Some are visiting family, some are going to work at a camp, like whatever. They're not going to be in the same place for the summer. And on the day before they all leave, they are out shopping together and they magically find a pair of jeans that fit all 4 of them, despite them all having very different body types, wearing different size pants. So basically the story is told by them sharing the pants. Every week or so, I think they will mail the pants to the next friend, and you'll get to see each girl's journey throughout the summer. Truly, like, you can read this in like one day. It's so easy. I thought it would be cool to pick one song from each album that I feel like is the most similar to the book, because like I said, since they're not very like plot similarities between the albums and the books, I thought it'd be cool to pick one song. So the companion song that I picked for Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants is A Place in This World, of course, which I think is probably my favorite song from debut. If you haven't read these in a while, these books are written from multiple perspectives, so the 4 main girls of the story, it will like jump between them for each chapter, and it's really cool to read about like coming of age and girlhood and that age in your life from lots of different perspectives, because it helps you gain a really great perspective on how other people view the world and how everyone's going through something similar but people just handle it differently. It's a great thing to reread as a 20-something, because the themes in these books are still very present in your life as a 20-something, especially if you have no idea what the hell you're doing with your life. they're a great read, so I'd recommend. Okay, next up is Fearless, and this one is a little bit interesting. The book that I'm recommending for Fearless is Where the Crawdads Sing by Delia Owens. So the theme that I feel like is similar to Fearless in this book is the idea, or like the concept of a girl raising herself, which I feel like is very synonymous with Fearless to me, like growing up but still wanting to remember your childhood, feeling unsure about your place. I feel like Fearless and Debut are very similar in theme, but what I really love about this book is the really sweet love story that I feel like is very central to this book, which also feels very Fearless to me, like feeling very optimistic and pure, sweet, young love, which I feel like is so Fearless and also very core to this book. So if you don't know Where the Crawdads Sing, it takes place in a very small North Carolina town, and the story is told over this girl's entire life. So it's about a girl who grew up in a very poor area and was basically left to her own devices at a very young age, basically raising herself, making her own money, feeding herself basically like throughout her entire childhood. And it's about her interactions with like the very stagnant, you could say judgmental people that live in the town that her house is near, how they view her, the rumors that circulate about her. I literally devoured this book in like 2 days at the beach last year. This is like so summery, like the setting of this book is so summery, and Fearless is a very summer album to me, so I feel like they just go together very well. Oh, I didn't do my companion song for Fearless. It was hard for me to choose one from Fearless, but the song that I picked is Untouchable, which I know that song wasn't even written by Taylor, but the lyrics in that song are so beautiful and they totally sound like they could be written by Taylor, and I feel like that song really paints a beautiful picture the same way that Where the Crawdads Sing does. Okay, for Speak Now, the book that I picked was Where'd You Go, Bernadette by Maria Semple. This is a book that I listened to on audiobook, so I don't have a physical copy of it. If you haven't heard of it, this book is about a woman named Bernadette who is a mother and a wife, and they live in a place where she feels like the people in the town don't understand her, and family is planning a trip to Alaska, and before they're supposed to leave, she disappears, and it's about the daughter of Bernadette trying to find her mom. The book is written in, I think it's called an epistolary format, where all of the story is told through like emails, phone transcripts, stuff like that. So it's a very interestingly written book. I feel like what is so similar to Speak Now about this book is that it's really about like finding your own voice and feeling confident where you don't feel similar to the people around you. You're rediscovering yourself from who you once were, and kind of like giving yourself the freedom to express yourself or like reinvent yourself no matter what criticism there is in the world around you, which I feel like is so Speak Now energy. This book is also extremely funny, like laugh out loud funny at some points, which I feel like Speak Now is also very funny to me. Like there are lots of funny one-liners in that album, so I feel like they go together very well in that way because they both just have a sense of humor and can kind of laugh at themselves. Yeah, but I feel like that format of writing, the epistolary format, is very Swiftian, and like Speak Now like totally sounds like something Taylor would have wanted to do during this era, because it's just a very unique way of storytelling. And the companion song that I chose for Where'd You Go, Bernadette is Mean, probably. So my recommendation for Red, the album, is the book Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow by Gabrielle Zevin. I actually just finished this book maybe like a month ago, and I truly loved this book. Heard a lot of people have mixed reviews about it, but honestly it's one of my favorite books that I've ever read. Synopsis of this book: it's about two people who are in college at, I think, Harvard and MIT in Boston, and it's about them designing a video game together. I say that's the framing narrative for this book, but it's really just about their friendship throughout their lives because they've known each other since they were children, and it continues far into their adulthood as well. As much as it is about video games, it's also about the creative process, about friendship and the different ways you can be a friend, the difference between love and friendship. It's really a hard to describe book because it encapsulates so many different themes, I think, and I think that's why I really associate it with Red. Not only because Red is my favorite album and this is one of my favorite books, but I love Red because it tells almost one singular story about a breakup, but it tells it from so many different perspectives and with so many different lenses. I feel like the lyric that really sums up Red as the album is from 22 when she says, "We're happy, free, confused, and lonely in the same time, in the best way." Being able to process a breakup and be happy about it, but sad about it at the same time. Being angry, but also being lonely. And I've just loved that multifaceted aspect of Red. I feel like it's a very honest album in that way. So the companion song that I picked for Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow is Holy Ground. That song is about knowing something is ultimately going downhill, but still like honoring the beauty and the magic that there is in the beginning. The beginning of the book, when they're making their first video game together, you feel there's this like magic in the air, and then you know that they're both going to go through insane ups and downs in their lives and their careers as video game designers, but that beauty and that magic in the beginning is so prominent. But yeah, like what I was saying about being in your 20s and heartbreak having so many different sides, I feel like is very true about this book. But the way that this book tells that story is in relation to the creative process, like the way that being creative can be so hard but so fulfilling. It can make you happy, but it can also drain you at times. And I just love that about this book. Moving on to 1989. The book that I chose for 1989 is Malibu Rising by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This is such a popular book. I chose it mainly because the book takes place in the 80s, but has very 1989 vibes in that way. I said in my notes for this, I said, honestly, I would recommend all 4 of Taylor Jenkins Reid's books in her series about women in history, because they're all very similar in theme, in that they're about women, like women of prominence stepping away from the limelight or from stereotypes that are expected of them, and them having different types of relationships, just being different than you would expect them to be. 4 books in that series are Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, Malibu Rising, Daisy Jones and the Six, and the newest one is Carrie Soto is Back. I'm currently reading Carrie Soto, so I haven't finished it yet. And I feel like that's what Taylor was trying to do during the 1989 era. She's like, you all know me, dating and whatever, but during this era, I'm just gonna hang out with my friends, I'm gonna live in the big city, I'm gonna be a new cool girl, I'm gonna experiment with my fashion, cut all my hair off. I feel like just her personality during this era was very similar to the protagonists of these books, including the main character of Malibu Rising. The companion song that I chose for Malibu Rising is Out of the Woods. Malibu Rising tells the story of Nina Riva, who's a very famous model and actress in the 80s. She and her siblings are throwing a giant party at their big mansion in Malibu. And the story basically just takes place from morning of the party until the end of the party. It has lots of flashbacks to other times, but that's basically the big story. And there's a lot of big things that happen in the one day leading up to the party. I feel like Out of the Woods is like, once this party is over, like everything will be done. So it's a very like, you're stressed while you're reading. You're like, oh my god, what's gonna happen? So my book recommendation for Reputation is a little bit unexpected. I chose The Midnight Library by Matt Haig. So if you've never read this book before, or if you've never heard of it, it's the story about a woman in the first chapter of the book dies, basically. The story is about her going to this place called the Midnight Library where she is looking through books about what her life could have been like if she had made different decisions. So she'll open a book and it'll be like, oh, if you didn't go to XYZ school, this is what your life would have been like, and she physically gets to go there and live in that life for a little bit. I know that feels a little bit weird for Reputation, but I know a lot of people talk about how Reputation is a very dual album. The first front half of it is just about not caring what people's opinion of you is based on your reputation, getting revenge, being like subverting people's expectations, being a bad girl. But the second half of Reputation is really about falling in love, self-acceptance, choosing to disregard what people say about you and be okay with who you are in your own private life. That's what I feel like is very similar about The Midnight Library, is that the theme is self-acceptance despite the way things are going or things that are happening to you that you have no control over. The back half of Reputation is really about understanding that the only opinions that matter are the people that are closest to you and your own. And I feel like that is something that is very core to the story of The Midnight Library. The companion song that I chose for The Midnight Library is Call It What You Want, and also New Year's Day, but I feel like Call It What You Want is better. My book of choice for Lover is also a little bit unexpected and one that I read on audiobook, so I don't have it. It's Eleanor Oliphant is Completely Fine by Gail Honeyman. This book is a very unconventional love story. I mean, not the entire book is about the love story, but I feel like that's the core thing. I love that this book is very romantic, but in a very unexpected way. I wanted to pick something for Lover that wasn't just like a straight romance book, mostly because I don't love reading stuff like that, or because I feel like Lover is a very, even though on the outside it's just, this is a love album, it's very, I don't know, it has a lot of different sides to it once you actually listen to it. The story Eleanor Oliphant is Completely Fine is about the main character Eleanor, who is a very interesting and well-written character. She is like a very introverted, she does not like talking to people, but she's very judgmental. You read a lot of her internal dialogue as she goes through her life, going to her job, commuting, going to the grocery store. She is just a very peculiar woman, and she has a very interesting relationship with her mother, and it's just about her meeting a guy and seeing where her life takes her when she can't be in control of everything in her life. I also really like that this book is extremely funny. Also, I listened to it on audiobook, and whoever was the narrator for that was very funny and had a great storytelling voice. Lover, the album, has moments where it laughs at itself, like it's very funny, but also in kind of like a meta way. So I feel like those are very similar between the book and the album. So for folklore, I think I had the hardest time picking something for folklore, not because I couldn't find something, but more because I had so many books that I felt like fit for folklore. The one that I ended up having to pick is The Paper Palace by Miranda Cowley Heller. This book I actually did read paperback, but I think I lent it to somebody because I can't find it, or maybe I donated it. But literally the entire time I read this book, I just kept thinking about folklore. The setting of this book takes place at a beach and this family's beach house. The settings in this book are so like lush and beautifully described that I just thought about folklore like the entire time. It feels like the place where the stories in folklore would have taken place, and just the way it's written will really like transport you to this place. And I feel like that's similar to the way that folklore really creates a world inside of your head. It's almost like an entire world for you to explore. The story of this book is about a woman and her husband and her family going to their summer beach house, hanging out with the people that live in the town who she has known for her entire life, including some of their family friends. The husband from that family, she and him had a romance when they were younger. So it's about her relationship with him versus her husband. Because of that, it does include a very insanely interesting love triangle, which is obviously very similar to the folklore love triangle of Betty August and Cardigan. So if you are interested in that kind of story, this is a good one to read. I would say definitely look at a list of trigger warnings for this book before you read it. I did not know about any of those things. I don't know if I would have read it if I had known some of the things that are described in the book, but with that said, it's a very well-written book. And the companion song that I of course chose for this book is August. For my Evermore recommendation, this one is a little bit different also. I chose The Guest List by Lucy Foley. I really wanted to include a thriller or like whodunit murder mystery on this list because those are my favorite books to read. And I chose it for Evermore because I feel like Evermore is like the darkest of the albums in theme, and it's also kind of like witchy. Obviously, No Body, No Crime is a great song for this, and that is my companion song. I also really like that this book is equally dark and kind of magical, mysterious. The story of this book it's told from multiple perspectives of a bunch of different people who are at a wedding on a very isolated island off of Ireland, and they invited all of their guests in their wedding party to stay a couple days before. And while they're there, this island has very intense weather. They deal with a lot of storms, rain, wind. It's so dark and isolated. Don't have signal to reach people outside of the island, so it's a very isolated place. And while they're there, a lot of weird things are happening. A lot of people's lives are being unraveled. I said there's a certain whimsy about the setting and a lot of moments where you're like, is something supernatural happening? But you're not sure, which I really like about Evermore as well because it's very witchy and magical. So lastly, for Midnights, I chose These Precious Days by Anne Patchett. And I know I said Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow is my favorite book, but this is actually my favorite book that I've ever read. This book is actually not a novel. It's a nonfiction book that is a compilation of essays. I'm a big fan of nonfiction, and I would say if you haven't read a lot of nonfiction, this is a great book to start with because they're very short essays and you can kind of read them in spurts. You can put the book down, read something else, then come back and read the next one. And it takes place over a lot of different eras of the author's life. They're all true essays about herself, her own life, and people she knows in real life. But I think because of that, it's very episodic in the same way that Midnights is, because Midnights is about a bunch of different sleepless nights throughout Taylor Swift's life. Because this book is nonfiction, the author, Anne Patchett, is really able to like speak to you so directly in a very like candid and emotional way, which I feel like really aligns with Midnight's. I feel like so much of the lyrics on Midnight's are so vulnerable and like candid and honest in a way that I don't think Taylor has really written before. There are lots of moments on Midnight's where it feels like Taylor is really letting you into some extremely personal moments, and that is how I felt while reading These Precious Days also. The companion song that I chose for this book is Dear Reader. Okay, so those are all of my book recommendations. I would love to make another video like this based on another artist's albums or even specific Taylor Swift songs I feel like could be cool, but I need to read some more books. But if you're interested in book content, like I said, definitely follow me over on Instagram or TikTok because I post a lot more about books over there. Right now I'm reading the book Little Fires Everywhere by Christine Ng. I've been enjoying it. I'm listening to it on audiobook. And yeah, thank you so much for hanging out and watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time. Bye.